Hello and welcome to another episode of Anne and Steve Talk Stuff, where an artist and an economist walk into a podcast to talk about strange things that make the world go round. I am the artist in question, a playwright, performer, and musician. And you, Stephen Kinsella, are the economist. And what else?
I'm
That was
define
so
yourself in 3 words.
that was
What
so smooth up to that point, Stephen.
what do I do? Sorry. So I work at the University of Limerick where I teach and do research. I write for the Currency.news. I direct a load of research projects. I direct a thing called immersive software engineering. Many fingers, many pies.
Many fingers, many pies, and you advise the government betimes,
Yeah, I do.
which is quite relevant today. Because now, a number of months ago, we talked about the directly elected mayor, which is a phenomenon only happening in Limerick City, where we live in the southwest of Ireland. We had was it a referendum or just a vote? We had a city or a county vote on whether or not we would like to have a directly elected mayor. And we said yes, which would transfer a lot of powers from the capital down to the county and city, and basically give somebody the power to make changes and be a very much a hands-on city. I don't want to use the word manager because we already have a manager, but as kind of like basically the someone in charge who makes things happen much quicker. Would that be a very crude, simplistic analysis?
Yeah, I think the basic logic is that democracy is all about the transferal of power, and the limited transferal of limited powers to limited people for a limited amount of time. And national democracies work well because they accord national identity with national power, but not all problems are national. And Ireland in particular, uniquely amongst European countries and countries of its type, has a very, very, very centralized system of government. So more or less everything that matters in your life is decided in Dublin. Now, if you're in Dublin, that's pretty cool, because then the object of decision kind of overlaps exactly with your geography, or more or less. If you're not, then it doesn't, and that can often become a problem. So health decisions, education decisions, transport decisions, environmental decisions, they're all made somewhere else. And the idea of a mayor, of a city in particular, this will be a mayor of a city and county, but the idea of a mayor is that there's somebody whose job it is to fix the trains and do something about the buses and have a say in housing policy, and be an individual that you can sort of stop on the street and say, this bus lane doesn't work, fix it. And we don't have that, and we've never had that. We have a system of mayors, and we have it for hundreds of years actually. We have a system of mayors, and the mayors are ceremonial. So they don't have any power really, and they're elected from the county councillor base. And we have a city manager, who's city and county manager, who's Dr. Pat Daly in this case, currently, whose job it is to kind of manage the 200 million or so of funds for the local authority. Now, what the local authority basically does is collect rates, do things about environmental management, and it has about 80 prescribed functions, but a lot of it does not have things to do, for example, with transport or housing or other things. A lot of it is zoning and land development.
It's funny. Like I remember last year, so early 2020, the general election. So obviously before the pandemic, we had a general election. Remember that?
We did.
Just before. And as you know, my wife Jenny ran I ran in the election, and so I was at some hustings. I remember being at hustings where in Ballinanty, and there were these elderly women, and they were asking the candidates about a bus route. So basically, there was a bus route that really suited them. These are elderly women who need a bus to get from A to B. And it randomly got changed. I don't know the route, and I don't know much about it. But basically, the route was now going some in a very impractical way, and that decision got made in Dublin.
Did.
And they're asking these prospective candidates who might get elected, who one of them was going to get elected as a TD, or a number of them are, as to advocate for this bus route to be changed back to something that actually suits the locals.
Yeah.
And it just seems so so many steps for these women to have something really simple and important and vital to their life put back the way it worked, and that decision gets made by someone in Dublin who doesn't even live in Limerick. And so I suppose that's just a little microcosmic example of what that those women could now actually lobby a human in Limerick who would have the power to fix it.
Yeah, exactly. Or that person would be able to say, here is why that bus route changed. Right? Or that person could say, I have decided there will be no bus lane, and there will be no bus route, because we're doing trains or whatever, right?
Yeah. So a number of months ago, and if you're listening to this and you didn't hear the previous episode, I would recommend go back. And it says Limerick. It's very clear on the Limerick Post directory of podcasts. It's in the title, and Steve talks of Limerick directly elected mayor. So Steve has explained in detail this. Now, there have been developments since, though, and it seems that the government are trying to dilute this role that we voted on something. We were promised this is a role that, do you want it or not? And we said, by a narrow enough margin, yes. And there's due to be an election this year. And it seems the government now are trying to change the nature of that role so that the person would have less power. Now, maybe you could explain it to me in more detail.
So essentially, I mentioned before that we have a city manager whose job it is to sort of manage housing policy and all that kind of stuff. But transport isn't his job, and a lot of environmental policy isn't his job. Irish water isn't his job. There's lots of things that the city manager does, but fundamentally, it's done at a national level. The idea is to transfer all of the powers of the current city manager to the directly elected mayor, and then add on some other ones, for example, around transport. Education hasn't been touched at all. In other countries, the mayor has responsibility for education policy and locates schools and things like that. And in other places, like in London, the mayor there is responsible for the trains, and loads of other things. They've got a massive budget. The idea of the directly elected mayor here was that some transport policy would change, some housing policy would change. There'd be a bit of a budget associated with the role. They'd be able to raise a budget. They would do they would control how the budget is formed and all this, and therefore they would have the ability to respond to their constituents, if you like. If they need a new bus lane, in extremis, you could actually increase the tax take to you can increase property taxes, say, to fund more bus lanes. The current version of it's what's called the general scheme of the bill. So the basic kind of sketch of it has been released, and it's an extraordinary document, actually. So I read it one Saturday morning because I'm sad like that, and I read the whole thing.
How many pages?
It's 350 pages. Okay. Of the 300 plus pages, only 12 pages actually talk about the powers of the mayor. It was actually the thing. Typically what I do often is, if I'm reading something like this, I just go straight to the table of contents. And if you want to assess something's importance, literally divide the thing you're interested in by the total, and you get a sense of the importance of the interest. The reality of the role, as envisaged by the department and by Minister Peter Burke, is this is a golden retriever. It's like a shiny, happy, pet the thing on the head, throw it a ball, watch it walk away. The directly elected mayor of Limerick City and County, as envisaged by the general scheme of the bill, does not have the power to tell someone to water the plants. It is extraordinarily weak. Like it's a retrograde step. In fact, it would to enact the version that exists now would be, it would justify every single cynic. They would go, "We told you so," the "we told you so" merchant would come out and go, "We told you it was going to be a fudge." And it effectively means that if the mayor wants to do something about the bus lane, say that those ladies bus lane, he or she or they have to go up to Dublin and lobby. And so we actually have loads of lobbyists for loads of different areas. And if you want a lobbyist, you can get one a hell of a lot cheaper than this thing is going to cost. It's going to cost north of 300 grand a year, plus all the various bits and pieces that this is going to cost. Even the city manager, the current city manager, they get a new title and a salary bump as well. And so all of the various specified functions of the city manager basically get carved out of the role. It's one of these things, in reading it as somebody, like, I'm not from Limerick, but I live here and I kind of identify as being from Limerick now, I guess. I finished reading it at about 12 o'clock on Saturday, and I was so furious I had to go for a walk. Like, that's how annoyed I was about this. I was like, I can't believe they're treating us like this. And like the people in the Department of Local Government, like, they're good people. They're not out to get us, but fundamentally they've done us a wrong. And I said, okay, I'm going to write something about this. So I wrote a big long thread on Twitter about this, and it got a lot of attention. Like, in the middle of July, with sports tournaments going on and people on holidays, it's a fairly abstract concept, in fairness, and economists' comments on the general scheme of a bill. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not quite. It's not the clickbait I was looking for.
Yeah.
It got over 100,000 views.
What?
Yeah. So people are really pissed off about this, and rightly so. And so I kind of went on a bit of a warpath about it, because I was so irritated by how we were being treated. And what I was also very surprised by was how quiet everyone was. I didn't hear from Limerick County Councillors. Elena Seacas, in fairness, she came out almost immediately about it. But a lot of others, very, very quiet indeed, including the mayor, Daniel Butler, and others. They came out subsequently after I said, "Where are the councillors?" The TDs of all the TDs, some of whom are in government. The only person who's commented in any way about this has been Maurice Quinlivan, to say some blathery thing about how he made a representation. I asked him specifically, "What are you going to do specifically about this specific problem?" He didn't answer. Everyone else stayed quiet. In the business community, the Limerick Chamber really got behind it. In fairness, they really did. They got behind it. And lots of residents committees, like and community groups like the Moira Ross Residents Alliance and other groups got behind it and said, "Oh, hang on a second now, something has to change." So, in all fairness, there was a reasonable coalition there, and it should be mentioned, like, people like John Moran were kind of really, really pushing this from the very, very start, and they had actually made this point previously to me in an Oireachtas committee.
Right.
Anyway, so anyway, a bit of a hue and cry. Minister Burke came out. He was on Live 95 FM. Joe Nash has been really good in kind of pushing this whole thing forward, and said, no, we will make these changes. So it's a good example of kind of, you give out, the relevant minister kind of listens and goes, "Okay, we're going to do something about this."
Okay.
But now the question is, okay, what? Right? So what specifically is this person going to be able to do? We're going to have an election. Somebody's going to get the job, right? So we could elect me, say, right? What does Mayor Stephen Kinsella do on day one of his job? Or we elect you, Anne, Mayor Blake.
Why not?
What do we do? Like, if you don't actually have the power, did you watch The Wire?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you know that idea, suction. does he have suction? Right.
Right.
Yeah, like, so what is Mayor Blake's suction? Does she have a budget? Does she have a block grant of a couple of million to go, well, look, I'm going to put that bus lane there? Or is it a case that she's got policy making authority, so she can go, we have new policy on bus lanes, here's what it is? Or is it more like, well, I'll go talk to the people up the road who have the money?
Yeah.
It's no, some of it, like, in all fairness, the mayor is going to have to lobby like everyone else. Sure, line ministers lobby ministers of finance all the time. Like, it's not, that's just the game. There's nothing weird or untoward about that. To be honest, it's part of how the thing works. But fundamentally, if you don't have policy autonomy and you don't have money, there's no point to you.
Yeah.
You're just the apex lobbyist. And it depends on who you are, right? So you can imagine a situation where a celebrity candidate takes the role, right? So that celebrity candidate is now responsible for, if the celebrity candidate is responsible for bus lanes, well, there's a chicken and egg thing. If the role has no power, celebrity candidate may choose to go for, like, a former sporting person or something like that, may choose to go for the role, and they'll get elected. But it's grand. They're basically there to shake hands and open doors and make connections.
But we already have.
Well, we already have one of those.
We already have one of those.
We already have one of those, and
we'll just get to elect this person, but, like, that's a lot of money to have something that's already like a role already being fulfilled. Exactly.
The other thing is, if the role is really beefed up, voters will have to make a decision on this. So if you've got some candidate, you've got some candidate who you like, you're aware of, they have large brand recognition, but you're like, do I really want this person in charge of the bus lanes? Like, that's a really important question. I think you're not going to get people with executive experience who really want to get stuff done are not going to be interested in a job where you're essentially a golden retriever. So there's this chicken and an egg thing, right? You try to make an intervention in order to give the thing more power, in order to attract better candidates who can then argue for a larger or more expanded role.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so when will this be decided? I mean, we thought we voted for something, and that now is like, actually we meant this. Well, is there a deadline on when the role will be defined?
So it'll be September, when we see the next updated, iterated version of the bill. And then lots of people will be, very strongly encouraged by me and by others to comment on that. And I really do have to say, like, I was surprised at how viscerally angry I was about this, because it's a very abstract thing, right? I mean, it's literally, like local democracy in a city of 100,000 people, but it's about that, like, those old ladies' bus lanes. They have a right to have somebody do something about their bus lanes. And TDs, like, fundamentally, a TD's job is not to think about bus lanes. A TD's job is to be a national legislator, right? Desi O'Malley, who just passed away there a couple of weeks ago, like he never did any constituency work. Leo Varadkar doesn't particularly do constituency work either, There are national politicians, and they should be national politicians. The idea of the TD as super county councillor, I disagree with it fundamentally, actually. But I really like the idea of somebody whose job it is, somebody who's walking along the street and gets collared, absolutely collared by somebody, and says, "Do you see that? That's in bits. Fix that." And that person has to go, "Okay, you're my boss. I'll do that."
Well, that was the thing that, it was a point you made in the previous episode, that this is not a out to pasture nice little gig for someone. This is, and the criteria is not, I have, say, been mayor of Limerick before. That's the criteria is, I have run things, I have managed people, I know how to make something happen and how to get things done and how to fix things, and I won't waffle. I'll do the actual, you can't coast on it. Like, it's very whether the job has been done or not will be very, very evident.
Yeah.
And the thought that we're just going to have another version of something we already have and cost us, as you say, 300 grand a year for them and
Yeah.
their staff. I mean, I don't mind paying people when they're doing a job, but you know, you don't want more going out of a local budget for what? You
For
know,
what?
for something that's already there.
Yeah.
Whereas what we want is someone with actual executive powers, and that's what
Yeah.
we voted for.
Exactly.
And so, okay, so Stephen, it is now at the time of recording, it's August. You're listening to this. The earliest you'll be listening to this is the first Friday of August, 2021. What can we do as citizens to put pressure and not lie down and be end up with a golden retriever, as you say?
First thing, write to Minister Peter Burke.
Okay.
So he's at Peter Burke FG on Twitter, or he's peter.burke@oireachtas.ie. And he reads those emails. I know he does. He has a really good sense of people's discontent. If you know, he's a politician, he really wants to do a good job, but his constraint fundamentally is he is arguing for a role that doesn't exist yet, and he's arguing that departments remove some of their powers. So he's saying, and please give me a piece of your budget, and please give me a piece of your power. And if Anne's the Department of Transport, Anne's like, how about no?
Yeah.
Right. So you know, and so he needs to be armed with that to do that. And I do believe he wants to do a good job here, because I listened to his interview with John Ash a few times, and he was like, you know, he wasn't kind of going, listen, it'll be grand, I've got this, lads. He was saying, look, I am going to go back and make another go at this, which is really important.
And where would the hamstringing have come from? Like, would that be from
just it's the natural political system, right? The political system in the system in Dublin doesn't want to lose power. It doesn't want to decentralize, for a couple of reasons. Some of it's really natural, like some policy coherence, right? Like, let's say there are, I don't know, 50 bus lanes in Limerick and there are 20 in Cork. Do you know? So some of it's that. Some of it's like they don't know who's going to get elected, right? So like the people can make a bad decision, and the idea that the people don't make stupid choices with their politicians is nonsense. They do. You know, this idea that the people in their wisdom, like some people aren't that wise, right? So some and bus lanes are like it's not that technical, but it is a feast of technical expertise, and if you don't have the brain for it, you know, it's not going to work out for you. There are people whose job it is to do that, right? So there is a question about where the power should go, and should the mayor exercise a kind of a more governance role and let the county manager or the new sort of director general role actually run things? You know, should it be a case of that somebody decides and then somebody implements? So which is the Minister Sec General nationally, or should it be something different? Like it's they haven't really figured out the model yet, and that matters because whoever gets this job, like if they weren't a politician before, they're a politician now. Yeah. And if they were a politician before, then they're bringing all of that with them. You know, so you could easily see a situation where you elect a Fine Gael mayor, say, and then that Fine Gael mayor has to go up and lobby a Sinn Féin government in the next DA, right? And the Sinn Féin government goes, "How about no?" Right. You know.
So would you be in that advocation then? Would you be advocating that whoever, obviously, you want the right person for the job primarily, and ideally someone who is a party political?
Well, so the here's it's not me speaking, but my colleagues at the University of Limerick did a big survey of people in Limerick, and they asked people, what do you want in a mayor, right? And the only 24% of them, 24% of respondents said they wanted somebody from a political background. They said that doesn't really matter. Right. We'll put the link to that survey up on the web. Really, really interesting survey. The primary quality that people wanted, almost over 70%, was that the person was a good listener.
Wow.
Yep. The political background didn't matter. People just wanted to be heard. Local democracy is fundamentally about listening to people. It's about listening to those old ladies and saying, okay, I'm going to try to do something about your bus lane, right? And they're listened to. Something happens or it doesn't, but at least it's explained back to them, right?
Yes.
And they then go, oh my God, that's my tax dollars in action, right? And it's this like trust in democracy. Trust in our democracy, by the way, is sliding. It's falling precipitously.
Really?
Everything, everything is on the slide when it comes to trust. People don't trust banks. They don't trust the church. They don't trust the government. They don't trust the civil service. Lack of trust is corrosive to society. It strikes me that something that has this ability, this is and like, I'm so struck by how like rare this is. This is the first time in a century that we have had any reform to local government. Like, and the idea that we just pass this up, we just forget about it because the general scheme of the bill was published in feckin' July. Like that's ridiculous.
And do you think that was calculated, that like put it out in silly season might get missed?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What I do know is it wasn't. Again, thanks to people like D. Ryan and John Moran and others, like it wasn't missed.
And your good self.
I mean, look, have Twitter account, will tweet, and all that. But I do think that like citizens, if you feel like you deserve a voice, you should use your voice. Right? We have, I think the last 10 years, if you think about repeal, if you think about the all the discussions about abortion, think about the water charges, think about the anti-austerity stuff, all of it's true, all of it's told a whole generation of people, if you stand up for something, things will change. Actually, if you just stand up for something, things will change. And what I think people have realized is that it's not that hard. It's not that hard. You get in your car, you show up at a protest. You write an email to your TD, you go on Twitter, you set up a WhatsApp group of your friends, and you say, listen, this isn't okay. What are we going to do about it?
Oh, the dreaded moments where you get a notification, so-and-so has just added you to a WhatsApp group.
Oh no. Oh no. Congratulations, you joined the movement.
And you can be added, but you can't, like, if you leave it, it's so public. But yeah, sorry, no, you're talking about activism, and obviously, it's remarkable how change can happen with people power and with and not like, it doesn't take a huge amount of people, but it takes cohesion,
a little bit of leadership, and leadership in this situation is just setting up the WhatsApp group. Like, I mean, it's not that hard. It's not like we shall fight them on the beaches kind of crack. Like, it's just call your friends and say, hey, listen, what are we going to do about this? The other part of it is saying is just understanding that we are the leaders. Like, what we do here for Limerick will set the standard for Waterford and Cork, Galway, Kilkenny, and Dublin eventually. And the mayor of Dublin, like, a lot of this is about Dublin, really. The mayor of Dublin is going to be more powerful than most ministers, right? They're going to command, like, Dublin is between a third and, maybe 45% of the total economy of the country. The mayor of Dublin is directly elected mayor of Dublin would be extraordinarily powerful, unless he or she or they are a golden retriever, right? So a lot of this has to do with 3 steps down the line, if you like, but can't think that far ahead.
So we must do this for Dublin.
No, we must do this. We must do this for ourselves. Understanding if we do it for ourselves, we'll change a lot. I often think that a lot of leadership is about cascades. So you do something that cascades down or cascades up, and then that
Okay.
cascades to something else, and then cascades to something else.
Mhm.
And it's a very interesting way of thinking about it because it doesn't overemphasize the individual. I
Mhm.
think we tend to look at the individual performance throughout history and go, oh, the reason, you know, was de Gaulle or Churchill or whatever, you know, and it's not really true.
No.
Like, it's like, formally speaking, it's not true. The reality is there are people who have to be at the top of things, but it's everyone else that gets done,
Yeah.
you know. And yeah, I'm I'm really exercised about this, and like I can't I can't emphasize enough how much potential we would squander if we let this pass.
Okay.
You know, I really, really, really can't. And I just, like, you know, there are people who listen to this, you know, both of you.
We-
Get up,
Set
get
up
up and
your
write that email.
two-person WhatsApp group.
Get on a WhatsApp group with all of us. It'll be fine. Yeah. um, but you know.
But what do you want to say to our two listeners? Go on.
Here endeth my political rant. Economists are funny beasts, because we're trained to be advisors.
Mhm.
We're not trained to be the person in the big job. We're trained to be the person talking to that person, you know. So very rarely do economists take center stage. That's probably a good thing, frankly speaking. So when it comes to political matters, weirdly, I feel very reticent to step into things. Like, I don't comment on, you know, politician X is bad because, you know, the controversy of the day. I talk about policies. Don't talk about individual political parties. I certainly don't talk about joining one or any of that stuff. You know, for me, that's kind of crossing a line. You know, but in this case, I really, really, really want to get political about it, because, like, whoever gets the job, like, I really want them to represent us, you know, and for it not to be just another cod, like,
Mhm.
you know.
And so you were going to appeal to the listeners. What did you want to say to them?
Well, the first thing is take a look at that thread. So if you just Google Stephen Kinsella, Mayor of Limerick, I give the details. I go through the entire document, so you don't have to. And I compare what they said they would do with the powers of the thing and what they actually proposed to do. And the answer is, it's night and day. Like, it's effectively like the vote didn't matter.
Right.
I put it, the way I put it with Joe was, it's like the whole democratic process is being set aside. It's literally that bad. Like, I try not to exaggerate during these things, but it really is. Like, there was a general sort of implementation report, and it said, look, you know, the mayor should have control over housing policy, no control. The mayor should have some control over transport, no control. The mayor should have some budgetary autonomy, no budgetary autonomy, right? The mayor literally can't water a plant.
This is burning money, really, isn't it? Paying someone.
Yeah, and some of it is like the implementation bill said, like, you know, the mayor should have some strategic investment funding, some like a general block grant, whatever. Nah, so no money, no power. The end.
No thanks.
No, thank you. So my appeal is the following: have a look at that. If it annoys you, write to Minister Peter Burke. Now, don't send him hate mail. Right? Just say, dear Minister Burke, like, use his title. He's got elected. He's been given a job to do by the Taoiseach of this country. You have to respect that. You know, people are emailing, dear Burke or whatever. No, Minister Burke, you know, I'm really annoyed about what's happening. I want you to do something about it. I particularly want this to have a bit of money and the particular powers. And you know what? I'll be watching. Minister Burke he's a smart guy. He wants to do his best. We have to arm them with this kind of stuff. And so it's about that. That's the first thing. Just find his email. It's peter.burke@oireachtas.ie and just write him.
Right.
Everyone should write to him. I have everyone should, right?
Okay.
The other thing to do is, if you're in a group, if you're in a community group or something like that, just contact me.
Okay.
Stephen.kinsella@ul.ie, and it's tphen.kinsella@ul.ie, and I won't add you to my WhatsApp group, but I want to push this forward over the next kind of 6 weeks, really, like basically to the end of September. And I don't propose doing giant, street protests or whatever. But I do feel like some demonstration by the people of Limerick, not just, random economists and stuff, is important. And to the extent that we can do that safely, we really, really should. So yeah, come talk to me, and we'll get something done.
So come join us on our revolution.
Come join the revolution.
Well, seriously, I mean, as you said, if we've learned anything with the referenda and the protests and that, and I mean, I learned a lesson in 2014. We had City of Culture, and on day one, everyone resigned, and there was nothing in place. It was just this vacuum of expertise. And I was at the famous meeting. I don't know if you heard about it, but there was a famous meeting, a public meeting. And what was basically said was, this is a bump in the road and it'll be grand. And the whole room just went, no, it won't. And it was a room full of artists who knew, artists and community groups and that, who knew you can't just give us money to do a thing. There needs to be infrastructure. There needs to be something running this.
Yes.
We can do our own thing, but we were promised support. We were promised an infrastructure. You can't just tell us it's a bump in the road. And then, somebody got assigned. Then people were hired, but we were basically being told, it's grand, shut up. And a room full of not that many people, just like it ended up being a gift grub sketch and everything. But basically, a room full of people just went, no, it won't, and it worked, I mean, and thankfully City of Culture was a great success. But we could easily have rolled over and gone, oh, okay, well, thanks for giving us money, and please don't, that whole the power dynamic of being, please don't take this away, and but we were stakeholders, and citizens of Limerick City and County are stakeholders, and as you said, we are the boss, so let's do something about this. And
exactly.
It's not often on our podcast that there's call to action, but what else do you be doing of an August, September?
Yeah, you're listening to this, you're probably sitting on a beach in Kilkee or Lahinch or something, getting rained on, telling yourself it's fantastic. And,
we need our sense of camaraderie and community back, so nothing like a call.
Shoving ice creams into your children. I mean,
ice cream's full of sand.
Ice cream's filled with sand. Your children don't want it, but you bought it for them, so they're going to eat it, aren't they? Yes, they are. Yes, they feckin' are.
And they like it too. Listen,
and they
Steve,
like it.
That's really cool. No, thanks for that. And I think it's timely, and there's an opportunity for us all to just say, this is everybody. This is political for everyone. This isn't. It's okay. It's specific to a county and city, but it is not about parties or sides. It's about
no, not at all. Like, if you could be Fine Gael, Sinn Féin, left, right, up, down, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, fundamentally, it's if you're a citizen of this place, it's your problem to fix.
Yeah.
And you should do a small bit to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that people won't be that up for it. But if you don't do something, then the cynics win. And let's not have that.
Let's not have that. All hail Stephen, our leader of the revolution. So now that you're just, about to start work, prepare to have your email and Twitter crammed with followers. So
That's the glorious Twitter revolution has begun. Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
Stephen, no, thank you. That's great. And
pleasure.
I do hope you have a restful enough August, considering you've just signed yourself up to lead the movement. But until then, we
Brilliant.
will talk stuff again. So have a good one.
Thanks, man.